Going on YouTube, Cloverbells here, back with another Scarlet Violet video, and today we just got news of the next competitive format that you're going to be playing if you are trying to go to live events here, right? So we got the news during the same time that the Gdansk Regions is playing right now. So if you were tuning into the stream, then you already know, but if you didn't, Cerebi already just put out their announcement a little bit of a few hours ago, and right here, it has been confirmed that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet Regulation F returns for the live Pokemon Championship Series events from December 1st through March 31st here. So you're going to be playing these Regulation F events for a few months here, right? And then that already makes you think, well, what about Pokemon Champions? So again, we don't have any official confirmation for Champions yet, but I would imagine maybe a little bit after February, maybe at some point in February, they'll probably give you something like that, but who knows? It's speculation, but it's still going to be a few months before Champions is able to come out here, right? That is just my guess, of course. But anyway, back to the point here. So let's say you've never played Regulation F. You've only been playing, you know, with the Legends. So what can you play? What can't you play? What's good? What's not good? You know, now on the channel, we're going to start, you know, our team building series yet again. So this way we can get you up to speed before the format officially goes live. But at the very least, you can at least click the link here, and then you can already see what has, you know, been played or what is allowed to be played. So right here, you can see the new usable Pokemon as if, you know, at the time you did not play Regulation F. Because again, this was a progression format where things would end up being legal and things were not being legal. So we'll take a look at this list in a second here, but I want to scroll all the way down here just to show you what is not usable, right? So all the banned mons here, it's basically the restricteds and the mythicals, right? So imagine your paradox mons that are going to be legal again, like Fluttermane, you know, Chien-Pao, okay, Urshifu. These guys are all going to be played. Chi-Yu, by the way, and then who's the other one? Wo-Chien. You know, you get to use these again, but the difference now is you don't have these busted Calyrexes and Kyogres running around, or these Miraidons. So now these Rune Pokemon end up being a little bit stronger, more so these three than the Wo-Chien there. But again, also welcome back a couple of mons, especially. First of all, Raging Bolt gets to come back, right? And as well as both Urshifus, right? Urshifu Dark, Urshifu Water. These are all going to come back again, all right? And with Raging Bolt especially, there's a couple of things that you can do with Raging Bolt here. Popular sets included the Assault Vest idea, where you can just make this super bulky and then just go for big chip damage here. Again, there's no busted legendaries running around. So now Raging Bolt is just even more powerful, right? Because of the low, quote-unquote, lower power creep. But now also you have to worry about Urshifus. Oh, I put in both Urshifus here. Wait a second. I meant the Rapid Strike one, right? So these guys get to come back yet again. But also with Raging Bolt, what was also really popular around this time was the Calm Mind Protect idea, okay? And now what that meant is, you know, if you're going for a setup move, ideally you're gonna have to go with like some fake out and redirection stuff. So some easy Pokemon to slap onto this is something like an Incineroar, right? And then even from there, you could even just add something like an Ogerpons Wellspring, right? So where's that Pokemon right there, right? So this is already like a key kind of core that you can add onto your team. And then you add Fluttermane, right? Something like this, whether it be a Sash or a Life Orb item or a Choice Specs item. That, again, will be a choice up to the user, but you get to play Fluttermane with different items this time because, you know, back in the restricted formats with legendaries, you know, Fluttermane had a hard time, you know, quote-unquote surviving, so you had to really almost put the Sash on the Fluttermane, right? But now you can add a little bit more bulk and, you know, you can just go with stuff like your Choice Specs idea, all right? You can go for Booster Energy Fluttermane as well, which is also something you saw in the restricted formats too, but now you can add a little bit more damage onto your Flutter by just going for these hard-hitting damage moves. And then after that, then ideally, you know, even something like a Landorus looked really good here, right? As a special attacker here. And then this was like your substitute Landorus, you know, just to help you in the Trick Room matchup. And then congratulations, right? We had, you know, one of your first Regulation F balance ideas, right? Now, ideally, again, this was like an Assault Vest variant. Now, if you had something like, you know, the Calm Mind variant, okay, then you might have like another fake out user onto the team. Maybe you might even just, you know, take out one of these Ogerpons and put something like the Rillaboom here, for example, right? Or you can go a little bit more offense and build towards the Urshifu as well. And maybe you can even take out one of these special attackers like a Flutter Mane and go with something like Chien-Pao here, right? So like remember how strong Chien-Pao Urshifu was, right? So again, you can even just do something like this. And this was, you know, another premier regulation F team, right? Where you have like the 2 fake out boys, right? You have some physical damage onto the team, and then you had like the special attacking Landorus, right? And then the leftovers Calm Mind, Raging Bull was like your win condition. And this is another regulation F team, right? And we'll put out another video where we go over all these archetypes and whatnot, and we'll slap on some EV spread so this way we can get you guys started. But these are just some of the initial ideas that you're going to be looking at in terms of, you know, regulation F. So a couple other Pokemon that I also want to spotlight. Let me just take these off the board here and just show you. Another idea that's going to come back a little bit as well is now that you have Chien-Pao legal again, now you can add the Dragonite here, and this will be the choice band idea, you know, with the Terra Normal Extreme Speed stuff. So now Dragonite becomes even stronger with this type of set, no Intimidate, no Fake Out, and now Extreme Speed just does heavy damage, right? So this is something that's also going to be coming back as well. And then technically, another one that can come back is what's that thing called? Gouging Fire. Remember this Pokemon? It's been a hot minute, you know, almost a year and a half where we were able to use this thing, right? And the selling point with Gouging Fire was the Howl set, right? And then of course the Burning Bulwark stuff. So with Howl and Gouging Fire, then you had something like Breaking Swipe here where you could like neutralize a lot of the physical attackers. So it was like your active form of Intimidate where you're able to deal out pretty decent damage. And your bulk is also pretty good as well. Like again, 105 HP, 121 defense, right? And then all of a sudden you can boost up your attack. And then something like King Gambit was pretty good here because again, with King Gambit, you can Howl the King Gambit and give this an attack boost as well. And then if you had other physical attackers like Rillaboom and Urshifu, right? Now all of a sudden, you know, with these plus attacks, all of these things are going to be hitting harder, like +1 Grassy Glides, +1 Wicked Blows. Okay, these are very, very strong options to have with Gouging Fire. And then ideally something like a Booster Energy was used on this. So if you had something like a Flutter Mane, right, you wouldn't give the Flutter Mane the booster, you probably give it like the Sash, Choice Specs item. All right, and that's okay because again, Gouging Fire really wants to go first and get off these howls, you know, type of damage here. So some other idea that you could do is again, the Gouging Fire, King Gambit, Chien-Pao here. Right, you don't even have to commit to Dragonite here. You can still keep something like the Urshifu, or even you can just add the Flutter Mane just like for another special attacker, and then something like, let's say, an Ogerpons Wellspring, right? So again, you just round out that. No, that's the grass one. Right, this can also just round out your Fire, Water, Grass core here, and then this is like another pretty decent team that was already used back in Regulation F, right? So we'll call this like Gouging Fire balance, right? But again, Dragonite can also fit onto this. It's just really depending on how you want to play a particular squad. But again, it is something that was used quite a bit in Regulation F. All right, so now you don't always have to commit to stuff like Whimsicott and Murkrow anymore like you were doing in Regulation H. Now you can have your Tornadus back yet again. So like this is another kind of starting team where you have a hyper offensive core with Tornadus, Flutter Mane, Chi. We've seen this before even in the restricted formats, right? Well, now you get to play it yet again. So ideally something like this with Tornadus, you would have both Tailwind and Sunny Day. And now that would enable the photosynthesis on the Flutter Mane. And now you have the Chi hitting even harder in the sun because again, you are a fire type as well. And then just in terms of like physical damage, you could probably add the Urshifu single strike over here, right, with a Sash, and then just you know put out some big physical damage. So this is like another kind of core that you can use with Tornadus, with a bunch of special attackers and some physical offense here. Or you could even commit to something like this, where you have like a Trick Room end, you know, with Furgraph and the Blood Moon Ursaluna, right? So this is also something that was played a little bit, where you had like the Tail Room option, right? And then, you know, these options can be a little bit different, but, you know, with something like this, where the Ursaluna can play both in the Trick Room and the Tailwind mode, this is also something that was used quite a bit. And then after this, you know, you can just add like some easy balance options here. Even if you don't want to commit to the Flutter Mane Chi-Yu, aka the Flutterfish, you could even just do something like Ogerpons Heart Flame here, right? And then maybe even something like an Iron Hands, which should also benefit, you know, into like your Trick Room games like Furgraph, Ursaluna, and Iron Hands. This is again another kind of trio that was also doing relatively well. So if you want to commit to something like that, that is also the play there. But Tornadus offense is going to be back yet again. Sometimes you can even add Goldengo onto these teams here, but you know, Goldengo wasn't used as much in this format because again, the return of Urshifu and also something like Roaring Moon just kind of threatened it a lot. So there wasn't as much Goldengo in this format, but it was still around a little bit. But don't expect to see it the same usage as it was in Regulation Age. Do you guys remember this Pokemon, Iron Crown? Well, yes, you get to use this yet again. Iron Crown, we call this Iron Crown Psyspam, right? Because again, you have the Indeedee here that can provide the Psychic Terrain, and now Iron Crown can just go for these hard-hitting Expanding Force plays, right? And the whole idea now is you're basically committing to like this hyper offensive mode where you do have the Indeedee for the Tricker mode if you have to play like some kind of mirror. But Iron Crown is pretty useful because again, with Tacky and Cutter, you hit twice, and that means you get to bypass Focus Sash ideas. So then something like this could just easily feature something like a Regidrago, which we've seen before. And now all of a sudden you have Tailwind, right? And then you have Dragon Energy. Remember Regidrago? Man, it's been a hot minute since you guys got to play this Pokemon. So you get to play it yet again. And then after this, you can probably just add some balance idea with like one of the Ogerpons. Ideally, you could do like Ogerpon Heart Flame, and then you can just do something like Water Urshifu here. And once again, this is another idea that you can play in Regulation F. And we've seen this before already. But yeah, Iron Crown, welcome back. All right, what about something like the Archaludon Rain R-type? Can this still work in Regulation F? Oh, absolutely. So very easily, you could just do like Tornadus, Archaludon, and Urshifu, right? And now all of a sudden, you have another really, really big physical breaker in the rain. This is almost taking away the Basket Legion slot here for that physical breaker damage. And then you can just have your defensive backbone again, like Incineroar and Amoonguss. Old reliable stuff, and then this last slot here can just be like the Flutter Mane, right? And then now all of a sudden you have a couple of good special attackers, you have your defensive backbone, and you have your physical breaker in the rain, which is again the Urshifu taking place of the Basket Legion slot. So ideally, again, this is going to be the Assault Vest Archaludon here with the stamina. And again, you know, with that lower power creep format, our Archaludon is still looking pretty good. And no difference here. Now you're just adding Urshifu here, which again, you could use against like another Archaludon, which is why, you know, Bug is still like the preferred idea here. But, you know, be on the lookout for this as well. Because again, I don't think Archaludon is going away this format at all. I think it's still going to be very, very good. And, you know, just even more like rain teams with like Pelipper, for example. Like Pelipper can still fit on this. If you don't even want to play Tornado stuff, you can still technically play the Pelipper onto a team like this, and then it could just be like Pelipper, Archaludon with the Urshifu stuff. Like that is still pretty good too. So something like this, where you could even replace this, right? Add the Pelipper, okay, and then you can even still keep your defensive backbone. Now, another idea that you can also use here, if you don't want something like the Urshifu here, you can even just consider Landorus here, because again, Landorus also pressures Archaludon too, and you get the return of Sandsear Storm. This is also something that we saw in the restricted format too, where you have like Flutter Mane and the Landorus, but you know, with the rain stuff, and then you can still have like a defensive backbone here, or you can even still add the Urshifu here if you don't like, you know, Incin and an Amoonguss on the same team. So again, more ideas to consider as you're, you know, trying to navigate through this format if you still like rain. I also remember Roaring Moon being played quite a bit in Regulation F. So in terms of like the balance idea, you can still have your classic Incin Amoonguss backbone here, right? And then ideally, this would be Flutter Mane here, right? So you have two Paradox Pokemon here, but this Roaring Moon, ideally with something like Dragon Dance, and you can also still play a Tailwind idea, which we can also showcase in a bit. But again, with knockoff pressure, it's also very, very strong. And then you also have like this Terra Flying Acrobatics idea, right? And then the Flutter Mane can be a little bit more offensive, where you can just have like the choice specs here. And then after this, or you can even add the Sash if you really want to, right? Because this is going to be getting the booster energy, right? So you can still either go like Specs Icy Wind for a little bit more speed control, or you can even go like the Sash. But again, like Raging Bolt still looks pretty good onto stuff like this, right? And if it's an Assault Vest set, ideally it's going to have something like Snarl, right? And then you still have Thunderclap Pressure, you know, some kind of priority move. And then ideally, you know, just to round out this fire grass idea, you can have a water type here. You can have Urshifu, but I still like Ogerpon Wellspring. I think Wellspring is a really, really good Pokemon in this format. And again, now you still have like this balance concept with Roaring Moon here. Otherwise, if you want, you can play like a different idea with Roaring Moon and play it something like this, where you can still have the Raging Bolt here, but this can be a Breaking Swipe, you know, Tailwind idea, with Protect, and then you still have Knockoff, right? And then this kind of Roaring Moon is still like pretty good here. And then Raging Bolt here, along with Wellspring, again, is still pretty good. Okay, I still like this balance core. And then you can even add the Hisuian Arcanine here, right? And then Arcanine as the Hisuian variant was like a more offensive idea. But again, like a Fire Water Grass here, where you can protect the Arcanine from like these ground moves and these water moves in general from like an Urshifu. But again, the reason why I like Ogerpons Wellspring is because, again, of the Rapid Strike Urshifu. This is going to help a lot, where you can take those water type attacks, soak it up, and then just pressure it right back with something like Horn Leech or the other grass move, Power Ripper, for example, here. But I still like this concept, right? And then, with Tailwind here, this is where something like you can play the Goldengo. And then now the Goldengo with the Life Orb idea looks really, really good. And then you can still set up a nasty plot here, right, with Make It Rain and Shadow Ball. Right, this is also pretty good into like, Flutter Mane stuff. And then you can still keep this as like Terra Steel, or even like Terra Normal is also going to be pretty good. And then, like, for a little bit more breaker damage, this is where you add something like Urshifu Rapid Strike here. And again, this is also pretty solid in general, right? You have a Dragon type here. You still got a Fire, Water, Grass core going on here. Technically, this is like double Dragon here. Okay. And then with Raging Bolt here, this is where you can have like Terra Fairy options here, right? So you still get this like quote-unquote Dragon Fairy Steel idea. And this is another way to really play it. But again, Raging Bolt, welcome back. Again, it's going to be played much more now that a lot of the big legends are out of the way. And in this format, it was a really, really good Pokemon to use. All right, last thing, for our initial thoughts here. So I do also like Glimmora in this format. And we saw quite a bit of Glimmora, in Regulation F, especially like towards the tail end of it. So ideally, they always want something like a Tornadus to give them Tailwind support. And then from here, it's just all about adding, some physical options, as well as like something like a Flutter Mane here that can give you Icy Wind support, right, for additional speed control in the mirror matchup. But ideally, Tornadus, Flutter Mane, Glimmora, and then something physical like an Urshifu Single Strike here is looking pretty good here. So, with Glimmora, ideally you could have like the Power Herb set and then just go for like these hard-hitting Meteor Beams. There's a lot of fire types running around here. So, and then Sludge Bomb is also solid. And then something like Earth Power, again, really good into Archaludons and other ground weaks. There was quite a bit of ground weaks in that format. And then just Spiky Shield in general, right? And then, of course, Terra Grass is also pretty good against like another Urshifu, clicking Surging Strikes and whatnot. So something like this is still pretty good. And again, Ogerpons Wellspring still looks pretty good here. As like another supporting option, and this last slot probably up for grabs here. You can probably put like some fire type here, but I still like Glimmora in something like this, because again, you're enabling it relatively well with the Tailwind support, and you're protecting it with stuff like Ogerpons here. So this is a pretty good way to utilize Glimmora if you really wanted to play it. And again, the rock coverage is also pretty good against like some of these flying types that are running around, especially like Acrobatics, Terra Flying Roaring Moon, or like other Tornaduses for that matter. This is also pretty good against Chien-Pao stuff, especially when you can get, the toxic debris going around, because again, the poison damage does break Focus Sash. So if you want to play something like that, I think that's also within the realm. Or you can play this like in a balanced format with something like Trichoma to the team. But ideally, again, I still like the Glimmora stuff. You could even just add Chi-Yu here, right, as like another fire type here, just to re-enable the Flutter Mane idea. And this is, again, another idea that you can definitely take advantage of if you like something like this. I think I saw this in one of the regionals, but it's a very easy team to play, right? Like Tornadus, Flutter Mane, Chi-Yu yet again, Glimmora, and then Ogerpons, and then the Single Strike Urshifu here, right? So if you want to play this type of hyper offense, then you can definitely do that. But again, I do like Glimmora. All right, so that's it. That's going to do it for like our common cores and ideas that are coming back into Regulation F. But are there other things, that you can play? For example, like Indeedee, Hatterene, Torkoal stuff, you can still play that. Do you still have to worry about Dondozo in this format? Yes, absolutely. Like, I still think you can play Dozo, and you still have to prepare for it as well, a little bit. Okay, stuff like Ting Lu is going to be pretty good, because again, Ting Lu is strong into like the Raging Bull stuff. This is why they go Terra Fairy, right? But again, those type of teams somewhat can be a little bit passive, but you still have to plan for them a little bit. I also think some niche options like Suicune can be played here. We got to see a little bit of that, but we'll cover more ideas in future videos. I just wanted to like get you started and just show you what exactly was running around when you can still play these Paradox Pokemons but no legendaries. I think this is a relatively balanced format, you know, just because you don't have the legendaries, but you still get access to some of the other Paradox mons. Now, that being said, you know, Raging Bolt balance was annoying to play against, and that's probably going to be one of the premier teams that you have to worry about, whether it be like the Assault Vest idea or the Calm Mind idea with like the fake outs, right? So that is something you do have to consider. But you know, it's all in the matter of the team building. Like, as long as you have checks, then you don't really have too much to worry about, okay? It's really just a mirror matchup that you have to concern yourself with. All right, but that's it. So now from here, we'll get out, like, you know, tier list videos. We'll get out speed tier videos, just because, again, you want like a lot of this knowledge to help prepare you again for Regulation F. We'll put out some teams, right? So team building videos are going to start up yet again, okay? And hopefully that'll get you started in the next format. All right, but again, enjoy the tail end of Regulation H. We'll still put out some Regulation H stuff, right? We'll still be recapping, you know, regionals. You know, again, Gdansk is playing, and then of course you're still preparing for Las Vegas, right? So if that is still something that you need help with, feel free to sign up for coaching on the channel. We're still taking slots, right? So tier 3 gets you a one-on-one team building session with me. Otherwise, if you want that, and along with the battle critiquing, you know, where you get to show me showdown replays where we can give you feedback on your games, tier 4 is definitely the play there. And either way, you can look in the video description below to click the link to sign up on the channel, or you can look in the pinned comment section where we have the same link where you can join the channel with that tier sub, okay? Otherwise, you can join the Discord for free. That is always available. We're closing in on, again, 1,300 members, so feel free to engage with our community, because again, we got a lot of good players, and if you need people to spar with, you can definitely use our Discord for that as well. All right, but that's it for now, folks. We'll be back with another video in the next one. Enjoy Gdansk. Peace out, and have a good one.